Imagine waking up one morning to discover that all the land on Earth has vanished, swallowed whole by the rising seas. Roads, cities, mountains, all submerged under endless oceans. Welcome to the ultimate water world, where Earth has transformed into a giant blue ball with no continents in sight. What would happen to us? Can humans survive underwater? Or is this the end of the story for land lovers like us? Let's dive in and explore this hypothetical, yet terrifying, scenario. The Earth's Great Flood. What would kick it all off? First things first, how does Earth suddenly become 100% ocean? Well, picture an intense heat wave so brutal it melts every last bit of ice on the planet, glaciers, polar ice caps, you name it. That's right, all the frozen water stored on land would rush into the seas, causing sea levels to rise dramatically. Currently, about 10% of Earth's land is covered in ice, think Antarctica and Greenland. Melting all of it would raise sea levels by roughly 70 meters, around 230 feet. That might not sound like a lot, but it's enough to submerge coastal cities like New York, Miami, Tokyo, and even the entire Netherlands. Say goodbye to your favorite beach resorts. Places like the Maldives and the Bahamas would be gone. The panic begins. The moment the flooding starts, chaos erupts like a global disaster movie. Hurricanes, wildfires, and windstorms slam into each other, creating a perfect storm of destruction. Governments rush to evacuate people inland, but with land disappearing at record speed, safe ground is a rare commodity. People everywhere face the terrifying question: where do you run when there's nowhere left to go? Some wealthy countries might attempt to build artificial islands to save their citizens, but constructing stable land in rising waters is a near impossible task. Imagine trying to build a sandcastle while a tsunami crashes in. That's how doomed these projects would be. Panic spreads fast, communication breaks down, and fear turns neighbor against neighbor. Emergency services get overwhelmed, and cities begin to drown. The first day sets the stage for a nightmare, as humanity realizes the scale of the crisis. Survival instincts kick in, but the odds are stacked heavily against everyone. Survival of the fittest or most desperate. By the second day, society starts to collapse under the pressure. With stores looted and supplies dwindling, desperate people fight over food, medicine, and fuel. Highways become parking lots filled with stranded, panicked drivers trying to flee. Power grids fail one after another, plunging cities into darkness and cold. Hunger and fear replace order, and the social fabric tears apart at the seams. It's like a real-life dystopian movie, but this time, there's no script or happy ending in sight. The law of the jungle takes over, but instead of the forest, it's a vast watery wasteland. People become predators and prey, trusting no one. Communication lines go silent, isolating survivors and cutting off help. The once familiar world feels alien and hostile, as chaos becomes the new normal. In this new reality, only the strongest, fastest, or luckiest will make it through. What happens to our digital lives? You might wonder, hey, would I still be able to binge watch my favorite shows underwater? Sadly, Wi-Fi signals don't travel well through saltwater, so streaming underwater is basically a no-go. And since most internet infrastructure, fiber optic cables, data centers, and cell towers would be underwater or destroyed, we'd have to rely on satellites and floating servers to stay connected. So yes, you could get internet above the waves, but forget about scrolling through Instagram while scuba diving. Earth's fiery temper unleashed. Earth's oceans hide over 1 million underwater volcanoes, quietly waiting beneath the surface. When the massive heat wave melts all the ice, these sleeping giants could awaken, causing volcanic eruptions worldwide. These eruptions would not just shake the ocean floor. They would trigger magnitude 8 earthquakes, toppling buildings and burying millions beneath debris. The force would be enough to send shockwaves through continents, leaving destruction in its wake. Moreover, these volcanoes would release vast amounts of water trapped deep in the Earth's mantle, potentially doubling sea levels. This sudden influx would flood even higher lands, wiping out more habitable zones. To make matters worse, giant tsunamis triggered by earthquakes would race across oceans. These unstoppable walls of water would obliterate what little dry land remains. Coastal cities, mountain valleys, and any refuge would be swept away. Humanity's hope of escape would be crushed under these natural disasters. The planet's fiery temper would rewrite Earth's map in an instant. The new water world. With sea levels rising over 3 kilometers, 2 miles, all continents would vanish beneath endless oceans. Only the tallest mountain peaks would remain above the waves, turning into tiny, isolated islands. These mountain islands would be difficult to reach, especially without boats or infrastructure. Survivors would scramble to these peaks, hoping for safety, but the harsh conditions would limit their numbers. Food, fresh water, and shelter would be scarce on these rocky outposts. Governments would likely declare martial law to control chaos and ration dwindling resources, but scarcity would fuel desperation, sparking conflict and lawlessness. Communities would struggle to rebuild amid isolation and constant danger. With no land for agriculture, survival would depend on limited supplies and cooperation. The vast continents would be lost to history, leaving humanity clinging to tiny patches of rock. The water world would be a harsh, unforgiving place where only the toughest survive. Underwater living. As the world becomes a giant ocean, the next logical step would be underwater cities, sci-fi-style habitats beneath the waves. But building these would be no small feat. It takes years and massive cooperation, and life under the sea is tough. Air supply, fresh water, and food would all be major challenges. Some wealthy groups might manage to live in luxury submarines or underwater habitats, but most people would struggle. Freshwater desalination and air pumps would be critical, but these technologies require energy and maintenance that could be impossible for many to manage. Extinctions on a massive scale. Let's not forget the plants and animals. With all land gone, forests, grasslands, and deserts would disappear. Plants that grow in soil can't survive underwater, so they quickly die off. Without plants, herbivores lose their food source, and carnivores lose their prey. A chain reaction of extinction would follow, wiping out most land animals. Marine life would not escape unscathed either. Increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere would dissolve into the oceans, causing acidification. This makes it hard for shell-forming creatures like clams and corals to survive, which then impacts the entire marine food chain. Even massive whales could be affected. 2 years later and beyond, 2 years after the flood, the world would be unrecognizable. Estimates suggest 70 to 90% of all species might go extinct. Human survivors would mostly live by scavenging, building boats from debris, and banding together on rafts or floating platforms. Life would be brutal disease, starvation, dehydration, and violent conflicts over resources would be daily challenges. Fuel shortages would leave boats stranded at sea, vulnerable to powerful storms, which would be more intense and dangerous without land to weaken them. If you enjoyed sinking into this ocean of ideas, don't forget to like and subscribe. Drop a comment with your craziest survival plan for a 100% water Earth, and let's keep this conversation afloat. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay curious, stay dry for now, and I'll see you in the next deep dive.